Assalamualaikum. My name is Nazrano, and I'll be presenting uh, Eugene O'Neill's play as a modern tragedy. How his play, the long day's journey into the night, is actually a modern tragedy or not. We will explore this in the question, and I will refer to some critics as well and define modern tragedy as well. So, look forward. Thank you. Before we describe the question or any details, we should know who Eugene O'Neill was. As stated that he lived from 1888 to 1953, which was a period marked by postmodernism and modernism literary movements. Now, his entire life revolved around the stage and his productivity as a dramatist. In a 25-year period, he wrote about 20 plays. That's a remarkable achievement. And his plays are known for their intensely personal qualities, their dark realism, and their tragic honesty. One of the most important things is that O'Neill is the only American playwright to ever receive a Nobel Prize in Literature, and he is recognized as having helped to establish America as a center of theatrical output and creativity. Sarah Churchwell says about Eugene O'Neill that he introduced psychological and social realism to American stage. He was among the earliest to use American vernacular and to focus on characters marginalized by society. Before O'Neill, American theater consists of melodrama, and farce. He was the first US playwright to take drama seriously as an aesthetic and intellectual form. He took it very seriously indeed. One cannot accuse O'Neill of frivolity. And some of his major works include A Long Day's Journey into Night, which was published in 1956, and Beyond Horizon, which was published in 1920, and Anna Christie, which was published in 1922, Strange Interlude, published in 1928, A Wilderness, published in 1933. Now, A Wilderness was his only comic play. Others are very serious, realistic, and tragic, while The Iceman Comet was published in 1946. Now, to think of his play, Long Day's Journey into a Night, is according to a critic, it is basically a play which offers a picture of a family torn by hate, but they are held together by love. All too often, the hate comes to the force, making it unclear what holds the tyrants together. Now, tyrants are the family name of the family. Now, the name of the critic is Yuval Schaffer, and which comes in the Eugene O'Neill Review, Volume 21. And now, the play itself is divided into 4 acts. It largely consists of painful disclosures and acrimonies exchanged among the 4 family members. The first is the mother, second is the father, and third, they have 2 living children while one is dead, and a working maid in the house. Now, those 4 members may have major crises. They are facing major crises as they face despair, the theme of escapism, and the family dysfunctioning is very prominent in this play. A central concern are Mary's relapse into morphine addiction. Jamie, the oldest son, continued descent into irrelevant dissipation, and Edmund's grim discovery that he has tuberculosis, which was named as consumption, and must enter a sanatorium. While the father, James Tyrrell, continues to drink till the end. So it's kind of a tragic story where all of the main characters are doomed from the start to finish. The past plays an important role in all of this, and we'll see the rest. Thanks. And we should also know what a modern tragedy is. In a modern tragedy, the struggles of ordinary peoples are explored, and a broader the downfall, the tragic flaw is usually because of some loss of dreams, shattered relationships, or the suffocating nature of social norms. Now, maybe the modern tragedies may be ironic or even satirical, and they may reflect on the absurdity of certain situations, and they find expression beyond plays. Like the tragedy may be in novels, movies, even poems as well. They are not restricted to plays only. It doesn't necessarily provide certain catharsis, like emotional release, according to Aristotle, like in classical tragedies, but it can evoke empathy and provoke thought. Thought provoking. One gets to see what happened, why did it happen at all, and the reasoning we explore. As we explore the characters, we see why the tragic fall of the major characters happened, and what was the reasons behind it. Now, to explore modern tragedy, the book Raymond Williams' Modern Tragedy is a very good reference for diving deep into what modern tragedy is and how it's different from classical tragedies. It's a good reference book. Now, to discuss Long Day Journey as a modern day tragedy, we will discuss certain points, which are dysfunctional family, obsessive beliefs, character psyche, multiple tragic heroes, ongoing and internal and external conflicts, open ending, internal monologue, and role of past in character psyche. Before we go into before we go into any details, I would like to discuss a critical opinion about the whole play as a tragedy by Richard Swell. He says that the father, James Tyrrell, is a washed-up actor, a compulsive penny pincher living on the glory of pastimes that he realized too late were hollow. Mary Tyrrell, his wife, has slipped back into her true habit on his everyday of the long journey. Jamie, the older brother, is far gone into alcohol and horse. Edmund O'Neill himself, at 24, the younger brother by 10 years, and recently returned from 2 years at sea, has been trying his hand at writing for the local newspaper, but so far with little success. As the play opens, he is ill and leans again on this very day that he has consumption, which this consumption may have been inherited from his maternal grandfather, that is Mary's father, with whom Mary had very close relations. To go back to the court, the situation looks hopeless. The one thing they all seem to agree on, they see themselves as trapped, walked in, folk people, unable to see their way. They look back in hopeless nostalgia on what might have happened, what have been. Worst of all, they take it out on each other in an augury of bickering and blame line. And such blame line. Nobody takes responsibility for anything. Tyrone blames his penny pinching on the poverty of his childhood. Mary blames her addiction on the fact that Tyrone hired a cheap doctor who got her into the morphine habit when she was sick after Edmund's birth, and then never gave her a decent home when she might have conjured her addiction. She blames Jamie's addiction of alcohol on Tyrone's giving him spoonful of whiskey to get him over his childhood ailments. Tyrone here means James Tyrone. Tyrone accuses Jamie of purposely corrupting Edmund and ruining his health out of jealousy of his younger and more talented brother. While Mary takes the end towards the end of Act 2, slips into the ultimate evasion, speaking to Edmund about his brother. She says he can't help being what the past made him any more than your father can, or you, or I. In the last scene of the act, in a kind of a ritual return, she says to her husband, the things life has done to us, we cannot explain. We cannot excuse or explain. Tyrone contemplating Mary's return to drugs, but in a way summing up the whole situation, says wearily, there is no help for it. I wish she hadn't led me to hope this time. I never win again. Dysfunctional family is a powerful trope in modern day tragedies. It allows playwrights, novelists, and filmmakers to explore the devastating impact of broken relationships on the individual and their capacity for happiness. In the play, Tyrone's entire family is fragmented. They are at odds with each other. They cannot get along very well. From the diagram, you can see that while Mary is obviously caught in her own world of morphine addiction, all family members are at odds with each other. Tyrone has conflicts with Mary for her morphine addiction, and he also has a conflicts with Jamie because of his irresponsible behavior, because Jamie loves to drink and like himself, and he goes whoring as well. He's non-serious in his acting career. So, and Jamie in turn has conflicts with Edmund. Conflict in the sense that he feels jealous of Edmund, that Edmund does whatever he wants, and he is the youngest son who gets what he wants all the time, even when he comes broke because of his ill health. His father, James Tyrone, never treats Edmund harshly. He forgives him, which we see in Act 2, in the 1 and 2 scenes, I guess. And then Edmund has also conflicts with Tyrone, as Edmund blames James Tyrone, his father, because of his ill spending. Both his sons, Edmund and Jamie, blame James Tyrone, their father, for Mary's addiction. Now that's how is the point that when Edmund was born, it was a difficult birth. They were in cheap hotels, and Dr. Hardy, one of the cheap quack. According to James, he didn't know what to do with Mary's pain, so he prescribed her morphine as her way out of the pain. Now, that from just that childbirth pain, she got out, but she got addicted to morphine and she had been in and out of sanatoriums. Because of that, had Mr. James Tarrant spent more money on a good hotel or a good doctor, even, Mary wouldn't have been addicted to morphine, and thus their family would have been happy. You see all that blaming? Everyone blames each other and nobody accepts their mistakes. Not at least until the end. Here are some textual references from the text. Both are from Act 1. In the first, we see how the mood shifts from a casual to a tense tone in a moment, all because of a communication gap. We see that Edmund says at all he should have reminded Harker that a Standard Oil milestone ought to be welcome the flower of Hogg in his ice water as an appropriate touch, while Tarrant says, keep your damn socialist, anarchist sentimentals out of my affair. Now, the Hogg is actually a means peg. Now, a peg and an ice drink, it doesn't mean literally. It's a metaphor for something unexpected or unwelcome for someone of Harker's social status. Now, Harker is all sanitarians were mostly high-level professions. It's Edmund's idea of poking fun at the idea that wealthy deserve free life from any inconvenience or discomfort. Now, anarchists usually believe rejected any form of like the presence of the god. They thought there was no government, there was no god. They rejected authority, any kind of authority. They thought that everyone was equal. They took the idea that everyone was equal way too far. Now, socialists were actually believers of socialism, which believe on social reforms and all, how the society has many classes. Now, class and anarchism means rejection of social classes, and certain ideas should be what, like rich should have a carefree life and poor must have a harsh life. Now, Edmund had that kind of belief, while Tarrant, he rejects that. He has the way of old thinking, which we see in the kind of the philosophers and the books he had collected in his bookshelf, while Edmund had more modernist thinkers and philosophers. They do have Shakespeare as the common favorite of the family, which is quite rare. Well, like most family do not have that kind of thing. Now, the second example is the communication is strained. See how the communication is strained and negativity is there and unhealthy communications patterns exist. To quote that Edmund, I'll be back up from Papa snoring. Gosh, what a racket. Jamie, I heard him too. The more I know his trumpet, his mother and brother. Now, the mother and the brother laugh. While Tarrant, he sketchy says that if it takes my snoring to make you remember Shakespeare instead of dope sheets on the ponies, I hope I'll keep on it with it. Now Mary says she tries to calm us down. Now Jamie, you mustn't be so touchy. While Jamie is just shrugging his shoulder and he sits down on the chair right next to her. Edmund, he said, for Pete's sake, Papa, the first thing after breakfast, give it a rest, can't you? Now he's trying to cool it down. He may seem irritated, but he's trying to cool the imposter down. And he too slumps down next to his brother. His father ignores him, and while Mary, she says that she gives reason that Edmund, you shouldn't find your father wasn't finding fault with you. You don't have always to take Jamie's part. You'd think you were 10 years older. Now Jamie, what's all that fuss about? Let's forget it. He's just bored. He's just telling that let go of the topic and talk about something else. We don't have to pick a fight on whether Papa snores or not. While James Tyron, he just picks it from the casual conversation and turns it into a more tense conversation. He picks something up, he gets offended from his child's behavior, and he says, yes, forget everything and face nothing. It's a convenient philosophy. If you have no ambition in life except to, he continues, but he's cut off. Now, in those textual references, we see that how the communication, the lack of communication and understanding between the family members contributes to their family dysfunctioning, how the family cannot function, cannot understand each other when they should have, and they could have been happy, but they are not. They are not happy because of their misunderstandings and their lack of communication and patience to listen to one another as well. The characters in modern tragedies usually have some obsessive belief. They obsess over a belief that they defend till the bitter end of the play. However, when a conflict is there, the way they respond to it is quite different. Like the character 1 responds to the conflict in a different way, while character 2 will respond in a different way as well. From now, the Greek tragedy protagonists were usually more determined. They do have some beliefs also, but they were determined also. But modern protagonists, they are not quite so determined to in fact, when they are aware of their weaknesses, they stand up for their values. That's what makes them tragic characters. Now, James Tyrion shows some awareness that some of his values are not valid for his family, and he admits that. However, he admits that way too late in like play 4. He's something like a sickly miser. However, he doesn't alter his attitude at the end. Now he's obsessing over the belief of saving money and finding happiness at the same time, but he saves up way too much which due to even on health expenses, which led to health problems in his wife and his younger son. Now that even he sees that, and when he tries to correct them their mistakes, he is admitting that because due to his mistakes or his cheap ways, his family is facing health problems, but he wants them to correct it. He doesn't. He doesn't want to correct himself from his side that he should spend more money, because he doesn't have that kind of money. Because he does, he can't. He won't do it because he's afraid of poverty. And as to why he can't spend that kind of money is because he's paying mortgages. He's paying off. He gets instead of paying for the mortgages, he buys more land on mortgages, and he ends up paying for them from the previous one's rent. Now from here we can see that the characters have some kind of obsessive belief as well. Now Edmund is hellbound to new philosophical ideas, while Jamie hates his son's ideas, as they are in conflict with all physiological ideas. This is again another element, another factor we can see in those battle of books symbol, like when the two cupboards are there, one is of the sons and the other much larger glass covered is of his father, which contains all those books. You can, if you want to see more of that, you can download the rest of the study guide, but for now we shall explore that how Edmund and James had a conflict on their psychological ideas and philosophical ideas from the text. Here Tyrone, he says that his health has broken down and he may be an invalid for a long time. Now Jamie and James Tyrone, his father, are talking about Edmund's health after Mary has gone out and Edmund has gone out as well. Jamie says that I know it's an Irish peasant idea, consumption is fatal. It probably is when you live in a hovel on a bog, but over here with modern treatment. Now bog over here is usually is an area where the black people in America used to live, and it was kind of it was the area where sickness was there, and hovel is usually narrow passage or an underground hole. Now a hovel in a bog is something like in the dirtiest of the places and in the dirtiest of the ground there, and in the dirtiest of the ground hole, consumption can be fatal. Now it's a very background, very old idea that consumption is fatal. Jamie embraces new ideas, new medicines, while Tyrone, he says that just because his son has consumption tuberculosis, he's an invalid, he cannot live, he will die. He knows that, yet he knows new ideas as well, but he still sticks to his own old ways and does not apply them in his life. He says that, don't I know that? What are you gabbling about anyways? And keep your dirty tongue off Ireland with your sneers about peasants and bogs and hovels. The way he defends Ireland is because all the family are descendants of Irish people. They have immigrated to America from Ireland. or at least their ancestors. So they are part American, part Irish, just like Eugene O'Neill and his ancestors. He's Jamie Tyrant says that the less you say about Edmund's sickness, the better for your conscience. You're more responsible than anyone. See, he puts that if his son is blaming him, he blames his son. It's more like scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of thing, but all the characters are at odds with each other, and there is no telling how they will turn out to be, but the end is quite clear that it's a tragedy. It will end in a tragedy. In Dream, in Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman, the American dream can manifest as a relentless pursuit of wealth, success, or social status, often at the expense of personal relationships or ethnic behaviors. Now there are another obsessive kind of belief. The protagonist can obsess over personal personal ideals, like they may have a rigid moral code, artistic vision, or political ideology which they defend, which we see in Agus Wilson Fences. The third type of obsessive beliefs is self-preservation, the desperate need to protect oneself or one family, which can lead to action that have tragic consequences. This is present in Tennessee Williams, A Streetcar Named Desire. And the fourth type of obsessive belief is illusions and denial. Characters stubbornly refuse to accept reality, clinging to comfort, clinging to one thing that gives them hope to live, that ultimately lead them to their downfall. Now that's present in Albert Albies, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, which is a very popular work. When such characters with the above different types of obsessive beliefs are faced with conflicts, they have different responses. They either go into a defensive aggression, mental breakdown, or manipulation and deception. They try to manipulate and some other people's other characters from lying, trickery, emotional manipulation, or even in some cases they may try suicide as well. They try different techniques like harm themselves. The impact that those obsessive beliefs have on the literature, or mostly modern tragedy, is that the playwrights explore themes like human condition. Modern tragedies highlight the challenges of living in a complete world where personal desire clash with societal norms and unforeseen circumstances. The second is the price of obsession, the price we have to pay, because even if our beliefs are true, right, even clinging to them way too tightly may distance us from the people around us, distance us from the society. We will feel alienated even. That's whole absurdity of the situation does reflect modernism perspective of alienation and absurdity. The importance of empathy, by witnessing the tragic falls of certain characters and the protagonists, we are encouraged to consider the perspective of other and the danger of that blind faith and the obsession with that blind faith, whether that belief may be noble one or even wrong. Ill-fated, clinging to any belief, obsessing over any belief or ideology till your end of the life can be fatal for in both reality and in stories. Now, as in Greek tragedies, the characters' actions were focused, how the characters reacted to the conflicts, and how they didn't. Tragedy in a character's psyche is that there are modern tragedies focus on intrinsic rather than extrinsic nature of the character. They often explore the impact of social forces, external pressure, like from the outside of the character, on the individual psyche. They are referring to the internal struggles of a character, but that struggle comes from. That struggle is the result of societal forces like social injustice or inequality. Now, by focusing on the character's psyche, modern tragedies create a sense of empathy and understanding for the characters, even flawed one as well. Like we see in O'Neill's characters that they escape, they cannot accept the reality, but still the reader, they are flawed. But we as a reader feel sympathy towards them because we understand them, we can relate to them because we know their internal struggles, how they think, how they are adapting or facing the consequences of their choices. For this, O'Neill has used a technique which is a very good one, which is internal monologue. He uses internal monologue in his plays, which is not a technique used in plays. It's quite rare because plays are more concerned with the dialogue and action rather than the characters' internal struggles. He uses internal monologue to create deeper characters. In the textual reference, I'm referring to Tyrant says, "When I was 10, my father deserted my mother and went back to Ireland to die." He continues that I cried too, though I tried hard not to because I was the man of the family. At 10 years old, we are seeing that why Tyrant was doing what he was doing. If he was miserly, if he was saving penny to penny, why did he do so? Because that even if we knew that his father died after deserting his mother and he was a man of the family, but never do we see in other plays or plays before O'Neill that did he cried? Did that character ever? What did he feel toward that action over his past? What was his feelings? He, as a child, it's natural that a child cries, and to give the character the emotion and add towards that his mother and sister were also crying, and because of them crying, he was also crying. But he tried hard not to, which is a very good example of his internal struggles. Now, Mary, she says that I was brought up by a respectable family and educated in the best convent in Middle West. Before I met Mr. Tyrant, I hardly knew there was such a thing as a theater. I was a very pious girl. I even dreamed of becoming a nun. I have never had a slightest desire to be an actress. And now, Mary over here is has a very good upbringing, very reserved, but when she sees Taryn, her world broaden up to Broadway and plays and actresses, and she likes that new world because it's new to her. Now, Mary is explaining her feelings that she never knew such a thing as theater, and if she were a pious girl, did she ever think of dreaming of becoming a nun or not? Her dream to become a nun when her parents were teaching her to become a pianist is a point to be noted, that Mary's own choice was to be a nun, and while her parents wanted her to be a pianist. Mary says that I never felt it were my home. It was wrong from the start. Everything was done in the cheapest way. Your father would never spend the money. She is talking about their seaside home in which the play takes place, and she says that it was never my home. My home was my parents' home. My home is not my home, and it was wrong from the start because I was supposed to be a nun or a pianist, but I did not. Neither I followed my dream or my parents' dreams, and because of that, I was doomed to a life of cheap street. In a cheap way, I lived in a cheap way, in a cheap hotels. I gave birth to children in dirty, cheap hotels, and because of that cheap and ill atmosphere, my children's health were affected, and one got to drinking, and the second got got the love of the sea, and never got to see life as a healthy person because he inherited tuberculosis from his grandfather. Now, Jamie, moving on to Jamie's psyche. Jamie says that that's a rotten accusation, Papa. Now, this instance occurs when Jamie and James Tyrant are talking about Edmund's health and how James is responsible for Edmund's ill health. He says that Jamie, you know how much the kid means to me. The kid means Edmund over here, and how close we have always been. Not like the usual brother. I didn't do anything for him. He has always. And he then again contradicts that. He says that he loves his brother. He'll do anything for him. But he reveals his inner psyche, his jealousy in the second instance, in which he says he also that Edmund, he has also come back home finally, hadn't he? And what did his going away get him? Look at him now. Christ, that's a lousy thing to say. I didn't mean to. He is suddenly shamefaced, right? He feels shame in expressing his jealousy, while James Tyrant does the wisest thing. He ignores that comment. He doesn't say that why are you saying why are you jealous of your brother or so anything, because that jealousy is there from the start. It cannot be removed, but it can be changed in a more subtle way because Edmund is dying. He is ill and he's dying, but the concern James Tyrant can help Jamie develop concern for Jamie, but all he ever does is, no, you shouldn't be concerned over Edmund. He'll get fine. He's fine. While Mary is doing the same thing, she's saying that Edmund is not ill. He doesn't have consumption. It's just an ordinary cold from the seaside adventure he had for 2 years. No one is ready to admit that Edmund is ill. The reality that Edmund is going to die. According to Ronald Williams, classic tragedies had one tragic character, one tragic protagonist, but in modern tragedies that's not the scene. There are many characters. Almost all of the characters are tragic because they have their own struggles. They are struggling. All of them are struggling. So their tragedies are intertwined and overlap. They are faced with conflicts. Sometimes their conflicts are the same or parallel even. In the protagonists of the modern tragedies, all share characteristics with each other. They have an obsessive belief that they defend till the end of the play. However, when faced with the conflicts, the way they respond is quite different. Now, all of the characters have some tragic flaw, and because of that tragic flaw, they are tragic hero because their tragic flaw will lead them to doom, or at least their catharsis, their end. James Tyrant, he is miserly and obsessed with money. Mary Tyrant has drug addiction and idealistic disillusionment, while Jamie Tyrant, the eldest brother, have alcoholism and self-loathing. He loves alcohol and he loves to loot himself, while Edmund Tyrant has tuberculosis and he finds escape through blaming his father over his mother's ill health. Such is their tragic flaws and how we see that they have a web of intertwined tragedies. The tragedies are interconnected as the conflicts which we saw in that the conflicts are kind of resonating with each other. So that's all about conflicts and the tragic flaws. The first example of that James Tyrant, the father who used to be an actor, is constantly in conflict with his elder son Jamie and his younger son Edmund, who is suffering from consumption. And while his drug-addicted wife Mary just has been out of sanatorium and she is addicted to drug of morphine. Very shortly after the play opens, the discord between the father and other members of the family is made clear through their exchange and conversation. Even a slightest joke can take a reaction or sudden moment of tension, and all the characters, they try to snap at each other, accusing one another. So that that lack of that intense conversation, the way they cannot even have a one single dinner over the day, over a course of a day, because of that communication gap, is the major tragedy, because their family cannot be connected because they hate each other, yet they love each other. They love each other, but they cannot act, they cannot sacrifice themselves for the love of their family. They cannot sacrifice their beliefs, their obsessive beliefs. They cannot alter their ways, because of which their family will be doomed to have nothing. Great tragedies, there are ongoing conflicts, may exist in psychological struggles or social pressure from the start to the end, while external conflicts occur due to family dysfunctioning, social injustice, or economic hardships of the characters. Now, internal conflicts are more like in the form of the protagonist or the character's guilt and shame towards other characters, their unfulfilled dreams, or their identity crisis. In the play The Long Day's Journey to Night by Eugene O'Neill, the entire Tyrant family is burdened by their flaws, which creates a web of interconnected tragedies. O'Neill's play is a play of ongoing conflict. The conflict goes on towards the end, and there is no clear resolution in which all four characters of the Tyrant family are in conflict both with themselves and with each other. So there are internal conflicts as well as external conflicts. Now, external conflicts are limited to the family, not society, and the way they persist towards the end, there makes up ongoing conflict. So the tragedy is in their ongoing conflicts and internal and external conflicts as well. As to who has conflict with whom, we can see that from a little description about the play, which is that the whole family's clash is actually with Tyrant, because he's the main patriarch, right? He is leading the family. His values impact the whole of the family. He has more importance to money. He gives more importance to money, and he tries to earn saving up as much as possible, that he never had a proper home and a proper family. He uses his frugal upbringing, his hardship as a child, as an excuse for his miserly attitude. He says, "It was at home I first learned the value of $1 and the fear of the poorhouse. I have never been able to believe in my luck since. I have always feared it will change and everything I had will be taken away." Now, in Greek tragedies, the hero thinks that he has done the best for his country and family, while as in Oedipus and Agamemnon. But in modern day tragedies, the scale is smaller. Their mind is clouded towards the family, towards friends, not towards the society. Tyrant, if Tyrant has conflict with his family and not the society, he is thinking that he thinks what he can do for his family. In the scale of the modern tragedy becomes smaller. Tyrant may have thought that he was doing his best to earn money for his family and to provide financial security for them, until Tyrant realizes and admits that he's sticking to his own opinion on how to manage financial affairs has harmed the family. He says towards the end of the play that a stinking old miser. Well, maybe you're right. Another conflict with because another reason for the conflict with James Tyrone is because as a patriarch he wishes to dominate the family. He doesn't try to guide his children to through the realities of the life. He just blames and goes on to say you should do that, you should not do this. He doesn't guide them like Edmund when he forgets to turn off the lights. He says that you should have. He tries to blame Edmund even if he's sick, that you don't have the power to save money, you don't think about saving money. So he doesn't have he's not a good role model towards his son as a real gentleman who behave themselves or conduct an organized life. Because Jamie, according to Mary, picks up his father whiskey drinking habit because of James' behavior towards him, while Edmund may have that consumption because the tense environment of the family, which is because of Mary's being in and out of sanatoriums often. Now Jamie claims that James Tyrone claims that Jamie is really good for nothing except making jokes. Mary tries to protect her son, saying he'll turn out right in the end. You just wait and see. While James Tyrone seems impatient and he says he did better start soon. Then he's nearly 34. This way, he imposes his values on other people, which frustrates them. Even when he advises Mary on having breakfast, he says that people should have a healthy breakfast, and while that is not the case. Yes. Mary says that you expect everyone to have a enormous breakfast like you do. No one else in the world could without dying of indigestion. He then continues that James, it's Edmund you ought to scold for not eating enough. He hardly touched anything except coffee. She says that just because I am eating less doesn't mean that I should eat just like you. It's Edmund. He's ill. You should focus your attention towards the sick son instead of a mother. I can handle myself. James Tyrone is trying to force upon his idea on his wife, even though Mary directs his attention towards Edmund instead of her. So Tyrone's keep towards Jamie. Tyrone keeps picking at his eldest son. He says that yes, forget everything and face nothing. It's a convenient philosophy. If you have no ambition in life except to, he may seem as a concerned father who's teaching his son. However, that is not how you treat your child. You should support them and guide them to a more decent lifestyle, not just contradict them that you are doing this and in a more negative way. It should be positive. Instead, he is irritating Jamie by sticking to what he believes is his duty and right as a father. He should descend as a father. He should think as a brother, perhaps even as the equal of Jamie. He should understand Jamie that if Jamie is facing certain issues, like he was a brilliant student but he ended up being drunkard, he should find out that root cause. If he knows that root cause, he should try all his best to do well, to set it right, but he's not doing that. Tyrant cannot stop himself from imposing his beliefs onto Edmund himself either. When they reunite in the home in the evening, the first thing Tyrant asks Edmund is to turn off the light at the front. In the corridor, where usually the light bulbs are turned on in the evening so that nobody falls in the hallway, Edmund resists. Tyrant begins to threaten him. He said, "You will obey me. Put out that light, or as big as you are, I'll give you a thrashing that will teach you." Tyrant believes that saving electricity is important and son should obey father. These views make him in a way that causes conflict between himself and Edmund, who believes that not using one light bulb will not have direct consequences in the family budget. Now, we see that the father and sons have opposing principles, whether they are on trivial subjects or significant subjects makes no difference. The clash of opposing views always end in conflicts. James Tyrant comes into conflict with his wife Mary. Despite her fragile condition in the beginning of the play, Tyrant seems to be quite happy with Mary and has that Mary has not been into drugs for quite some while. Like she has just come back from treatment of from sanitarium. He says that I can't tell you how deep happiness it gives me, darling, to see you as you have been since you come back to us, your dear old self again. However, the tension between them becomes obvious as they are having their first conversation about after breakfast. The reason for the conflict is Tyrant's claim that buying land is profitable. Mary seems to give up fighting with him about the subject. He says, "Never mind, James. I know it's a waste of breath trying to convince you. You are not a cunning real estate speculator." Her resigned manner reveals a marriage full of similar arguments with no change in Tyrant's attitude. Thus, the play portrays a family riddled with addiction, resentment, and a lack of communication, a theme highly relatable to modern audiences. For expressing all those conflicts and exploring character psyche, O'Neill utilizes internal monologue, a technique unique to his times, unique to his times for the use in plays. He uses eternal monologue to expose the characters' inner thoughts, add depth and complexity to their struggles. Much of the internal monologue is used to address the character's desire to escape from reality in the play. Now, for example, Mary often refers to fog in her internal monologues. The metaphorical fog represents her drug-induced escape from reality and her emotional burden. As she says, "It wasn't the fog I minded, Kathleen." This is from Act 3, where she is having conversation with Kathleen over the fog. She says, "I really love fog. It hides you from the world and the world from you. You feel everything has changed. Nothing is what it seemed to be. No one can find or touch you anymore. It is the foghorn I hate. It won't let you alone. It keeps reminding you and warning you and calling you back. She smiled strangely, but she said it can't tonight because she is induced from. She has taken the pills of morphine, and she is escaping reality. After that, she also says that she cannot feel the pain in her fingers, because she has escaped from the reality. So nobody can touch her, nobody can reach her, because she will be too far away for them to catch up with her. This hints her transcended into alcoholism and drug addiction, and her escape from reality beyond treatment. This fog, which is a blanket between reality and the past, can, because of this fog, which is there at seaside homes, at seaside areas, she can finally feel at home, at a place she have felt that was never her home. She never felt at home at their seaside home. She told Edmund while mentioning James' way of saving money, "I have never felt it was my home. It was wrong from the start. Everything was done in the cheapest way." Edmund also uses this fog as his in his internal monologue. In his musing about C, he emphasizes his desire to escape the tyrant household and its suffocating atmosphere. In fact, Edmund himself does not couldn't stand this serious illness when he contacted it at an early age in his childhood, so was never able to adapt it. Moreover, his mother's addiction to drugs represents an additional burden to him. But what increases misery in this deep sense of disappointment by his father, who preferred to keep the money instead of treating his sick son. Consequently, his sense of alienation from his family members increased even more, which made him escape to the sea, which he loved so much, traveling across countries on boards of the ships he loves. Imagine a son being always sick, having cold, then and his elder brother taking care of him, and his father and mother off to trips, business trips, and then having his elder brother being jealous of him and tell him the realities of life at an early age, which will make him to see the life as it is, which will he may see the reality way too soon, and his childhood will die, which he cannot otherwise as well have, because he doesn't have the health to play around as a child. And his parents to take responsibility for his action. They are not at home, so he's confined to his home at a seaside. So that same child, when he grows up and his mother has developed morphine addiction, and sometimes she is at home and sometimes she's not, and when she comes back home, and there's hope that she will never be away, but then she acts all strange, and that child has to lose his mother to more, and that off and on coming and going may has a very deep impact. And then his elder brother being expelled from school just because of his drinking, like his father. Edmund is, as a sensitive child, has seen his father downfall as an actor just because of his miserly ways, and investing in property rather than in his career, and Mary to rather than invest in her time as a mother, she investing her time in morphine and such escaping material. And the same thing with Jamie as well. So that child has nothing to do but escape that house and to see the life, nature, explore the nature, especially the sea, which he loves because he grew up by seaside house. So he loves that sea, and he loves to go on ship travels. On that ship travels, he sees, encounters fog, and finally he says that when I was on the square rigger bound for Buenos Aires, I became drunk with the beauty and singing rhythm of it. See, and for a moment I lost myself, actually lost my life. I was set free, I dissolved in the sea, I belonged without past or future, within peace and unity, and a wild joy within, something greater than my own life or of the life of man or life itself. Edmund knows that his infection as a tuberculosis is a disappointment to him. So he kind of blames his father and himself for being born into the world. He says it was a great mistake, my being born a man. I would have been much more successful as a seagull or a fish. That he's saying that if he had born as a pair of sea fish or a seagull, he might not have to face the conflicts he is facing at home, and his mother would not have been addicted to morphine. His father would not have been hopeless or hurt because of his mother, and his elder brother would not have been a drunkard, or even his other sibling which died at a very young age, which is named as Eugene in the play, would have been alive, and he would have never been born into the family. He would have been free. Edmund have been free at the sea, because it is at sea that he feels at home, not at his home. He says that as it is, I will always be a stranger who never feels as a home, who doesn't really want, is not wanted, who can never belong, and who must always be a little in love with death. And he says that death loves me way too much, and that is why I am ill and I'm going to die. So he has no hope for him being actually recovering. James does have his internal monologues as well, because he frequently revisits his past successor as an actor, this glorious past, which serve as a form of escapism from the disappointments of the present, that is of Mary being in and out of the sanatorium. Tyrant's tough childhood and his family strategies deeply influence him, shaping his life lessons. His stinginess is actually caused by the family, because of it, he's blaming them for their problems. He chased money and possession to escape his past, but at its cost is at the cost of his ambition as an actor. As he tells his son Edmund, I was considered one of 3 or 4 young actors with the greatest artistic promise. Now he was gifted artist, he was a gifted actor, but he is doomed now. He cannot go back onto the stage because his life is a mess. Because he's pursuing wealth, which came at the cost of his remarkable talent. And now he's using those riches to acquire more and more property instead of trying to face the reality, which is that his family is doomed to tragedy, and he must face reality to find a solution to the problem. But he is time to time escaping to the past, so unable to fail that bitter reality and his childhood poverty. He finds solace in material success and vanity, thus, but it cannot replace what he had lost. That is his talent, his remarkable talent. In modern day tragedies, there is no clear resolution of the tragic tragedy of characters, so they is mostly an open ending. The ending is kind of an open ending, without the audience is left to contemplate the character's fate. This amplifies the sense of tragedy. There is a search for truth and its ambiguity in movements like absurdism and the major theme of American dream in American plays are evident. These put forth the idea that in the real life about messy is often messy and predictable, just as the play itself, because it becomes messy and unpredictable because of its open ending. Because a happy ending is what, or a sad ending is usually what is there in plays, but an open ending, it's a rather a technique to keep the characters hooked to the plot while they wish for something more. But they see that the play is in a very messy state, just like a human mind which is not organized. Now those open endings capture all these ideas by mirroring the lack of clear answer or easy solution to complex problems in life. The ending of The Longest Journey to Night suggests that family struggles will likely continue. Mary will continue her drug addiction, James will stick to his snobbery, and he will pick up at his children in life, while Edmund will continue with his rambling on seas in his failing health, while Jamie with his poetry and womanizing life. This reflects the cynical cycle of addiction, mental illness, and unresolved family issues in modern day society. Thus, this play breaks free from traditional ideas and techniques employed in this modern day society. The play is as in traditional ideas. The play does have a definite ending, so the breaking away from traditional ideas is a very good example of modernism. Even modernism in tragedy as well. We can see that modernism strongly implies some sort of discontinuity, either a liberation note from inherited patterns, or at another extreme deprivation or disinheritance. This is a quote from the Modern Tradition by Richard Ellman and Richard Fredson. Thus, we see that modernism in tragedy is also there in this play's ending. So it's more of a tragedy than kind of real. According to Richard Williams in his book Modern Tragedies, the modern tragedies are more heavily based on depicting and revealing the twists and turns of psychological turmoils of the characters. In ancient Greece, what happened in the past had the bearing on what happened in the present. In modern tragedies, what happened in the past and what gives shape to the protagonist present psychological state. The characters are already in the state of psychological agitation, whereas in Greek tragedies, the heroes are more secure, self-confident, and strong from the very beginning of the play. Now the characters are in the characters in modern day tragedies. They have some past experience as a child, which impacts their which has impacted their life at present. Like James experienced a rough childhood, because of which he cannot spend money, even necessary money, on his wife and children. So that becomes his tragic flaw. So what happened in the past has impact on his on the present as well. So past determines present, which is a very good technique that Eugene has used, that past determines the present. But in classical tragedies, especially Greek tragedies, this was not the case. The character is the protagonist, the tragic character, is strong. He may have something. He may have done something in the past, like he may have done something to against the wills of the gods, and because of that he is doomed, or he or she is doomed to an ill fate towards us and in the present. So his tragic flaw comes from the past rather than in present. In modern day tragedies, the tragic flaw comes in the present. It may, or it happens because of the past. So past becomes a major holding to to understand, to simplify this, to understand a character or a person, you can assume, you have to study his life history, his biography. So if like we do in literary studies, if we want to study writer, we want to study a book, we first study the character's biography, then the work's history and when it was published, and then we go on to the characters and we resonate those characters through the author's life. So that is the case, that past holds position on the very significant position, and what happens in the present, even in the present psychological state of the characters, past some past event or action has the power or impacts the present psychological state of even the characters as well. So past is a major factor over here. The other day I was reading the Harold Bloom's criticism of Eugene O'Neill and his play, The Long Day Journey into the Night. He included an essay by Richard Sewall, in which Richard Sewall is saying that about Long Day Journey, that there's nothing small about Long Day Journey into Night. All that for being by the way of preparing for an educate, if that is possible, indicating of its impressive propagation. But first, a caution to one coming to the play with a traditional Aristotelian view of tragedy. The experience is something of a shock. The materials are unpromising. There is tragic hero. What about catharsis? There is pity, perhaps, but where is the terror? As to the tragic flaw, the stage is littered with flaws. But there are. But are they tragic? Do alcohol? Miserliness? Here is a wrangling family, as it looks, of born loser, seemingly with no other purpose than to chew each other up. Where is the magnitude that Aristotle found in true tragedy? And yet. So, Richard Sewell does no justice towards Long Day Journey to the Night, but he does say that if we see this play from Aristotelian tragedy viewpoint, we will find it very different. Why? Because it is a modern day tragedy, not a classic tragedy. So it does have the different features of modernism and postmodernism. So we cannot study this play as a tragedy, but not even Aristotelian tragedy, but we must see it as a modern day tragedy. As much as this play can be studied as a modern day tragedy, we must keep in mind that this play was not intended as a tragedy. O'Neill never set out to write a tragedy. He set out to write a play, a realistic play with dark realism, with autobiographical elements, and his love for his wife. He set out to heal himself by facing the demons of his youth. The play was written to be published or performed, but it was not published to be performed or even published. It was more personal. It was intended for his wife as an anniversary gift. He credited her with bringing him into the light from his dark past. She had the play published after his death, as she recognized his literary merits. In the starting of the play, Eugene O'Neill writes a letter to his wife, Carlotta. He says, for Carlotta on our 12th wedding anniversary, dearest, I give you the original script of this play of sorrow, old sorrow, written in tears and blood, a sadly inappropriate gift, it would seem, for a day celebrating happiness. But you will understand, I mean it as a tribute to our love and wilderness, tenderness which gave me the faith in love that enabled me to face my dead at last and write this play. Write it with deep pity and understanding and forgiving for all the 400 tyrants. These 12 years, beloved one, have been a journey into light, into love. You know my gratitude and my love. Jean Tauhaus, July 22, 1941. So it's more of a tribute to and his healing, but rather than as a tragedy. So it was never intended to be written as a tragedy, but we can study it as a tragedy because it does have tragic elements in itself, and by studying those tragic elements we come to see how it's a work of modernism and postmodernism. So and recognize his literary merits, as his wife literally recognized, because she went against his husband's wishes to not publish that play, because she recognized those literary merits in that play. So it's a very important play, and it does have its own value in literature. As I mentioned that earlier, that a battle of books, and for more other symbolism and a unique, concise guide about the book, which you can access through by scanning that code, and which will take you to the guide itself, which is a picture infographic of that whole play, with its simple themes and all title significance and all those important information you need to have in the form of points, and which is like to prepare you for the exam. So make sure to see that. Thank you.